The alarm screamed through the corridors of Perihelion Station, and Ji-hoon knew immediately that something was very wrong. He had worked as a maintenance engineer on this station for 3 years, and he had never heard that particular sound before. It was the emergency evacuation alarm, the one that meant the station's core systems were failing. Ji-hoon grabbed his repair kit and ran toward the engineering section. The corridors were filled with smoke and the acrid smell of burning metal. People rushed past him, heading toward the evacuation pods. Someone grabbed his arm and shouted at him to turn around, but Ji-hoon shook them off. He was part of the emergency response team. It was his job to stay behind and help. The station shook violently, throwing Ji-hoon against the wall. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency lighting. His communicator crackled to life with panicked voices reporting breaches in multiple sections. This was not a normal malfunction. Someone had sabotaged the station. Ji-hoon reached Junction 7 and stopped. The blast doors ahead had been torn open by an explosion. Beyond them, he could see twisted metal and exposed wiring sparking in the darkness. He knew this section should have been empty. Everyone had evacuated hours ago when the wealthy Veldari delegation had moved to the secure diplomatic wing. Then he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it over the groaning of damaged metal. Someone was calling for help. Ji-hoon climbed through the wreckage, cutting his hands on sharp edges. The Veldari were the dominant species in this part of the galaxy. They were tall, elegant beings with skin that shimmered like polished stone and eyes that glowed with an inner light. They considered humans to be a younger, weaker species. Most Veldari barely acknowledged humans at all, but right now, none of that mattered. He found her trapped beneath a collapsed support beam. Her elegant robes were torn and stained with blood. The purple color of her blood looked almost black in the red emergency lighting. 2 Veldari guards lay nearby, clearly dead. Ji-hoon recognized her face from the station broadcasts. This was Lady Arin, heir to the Veldari imperial throne. Ji-hoon dropped to his knees beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her glowing eyes focused on him with difficulty. "Human," she whispered. "The others?" "Dead," Ji-hoon said. He examined the beam trapping her. It was too heavy for him to lift alone. "I need to call for help. No time." Arin coughed, and more purple blood spilled from her lips. "The medical pod. They destroyed it. I cannot heal." Ji-hoon had heard about the Veldari regenerative abilities. They could heal from almost any wound, given time and the right medical support. But Arin's breathing was getting weaker. Whatever injury she had, her body could not fix it fast enough. "There are evacuation pods 3 sections away," Ji-hoon said. "If I can get you there, I will be dead before you move this beam," Arin interrupted. Her voice was calm, accepting. "Leave me. Save yourself." Ji-hoon stared at her. He thought about his small apartment on Earth, his mother who sent him messages every week asking when he would come home. He thought about the rational thing to do, which was exactly what Arin suggested. Leave her and run. Instead, he opened his repair kit and pulled out the emergency medical supplies. Every station worker carried them, though they were designed for humans. He found the blood collection pouch and the transfer tube. "What are you doing?" Arin asked. "Something stupid," Ji-hoon replied. He rolled up his sleeve and inserted the needle into his arm. Blood began flowing into the pouch. "Human blood is probably incompatible with Veldari biology. This will probably kill you faster. But it is better than doing nothing." Arin tried to shake her head. "No, the biology is too different. It will poison me." "Then you will die poisoned instead of bleeding out," Ji-hoon said. His hands were steady as he filled the pouch. He had no idea what he was doing. He just knew he had to try something. "Is that really worse?" The station shook again. Somewhere far away, Ji-hoon heard the sound of another explosion. Time was running out for both of them. He removed the needle from his arm and attached it to a transfer tube from the medical kit. Finding a vein on Arin's arm was difficult. Her skin was harder than human skin, almost like smooth stone. "This is foolish," Arin whispered, but she did not stop him. "Yes," Ji-hoon agreed. He started the transfusion, watching his red blood flow through the tube into Arin's body. But I am very good at being foolish. For a long moment, nothing happened. Ji-hoon watched Arin's face, waiting for signs of rejection. Her skin might turn black with necrosis. She might convulse. Every biological instinct should reject this foreign blood. Then Arin gasped. Her eyes flew open wide, glowing brighter than before. The wound on her side, which had been bleeding steadily, suddenly began to close. Not slowly, but fast, the torn flesh knitting together as if invisible hands were stitching it shut. Ji-hoon stared. He had seen Veldari healing before, but never like this. This was something else entirely. Arin looked at her hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. What is happening to me? I do not know, Ji-hoon admitted. He felt dizzy from blood loss but forced himself to stay focused. Can you move? Arin pushed against the beam, and to Ji-hoon's shock, it shifted. She should not have been strong enough to move it alone. But somehow she was. Together they managed to lift it enough for Arin to pull herself free. She stood up, unsteady but alive. The wound on her side was now just a pale scar. She looked at Ji-hoon with an expression he could not read. You saved my life. We are not safe yet, it said. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. We need to reach the evacuation pods. They ran through the damaged corridors together. Ji-hoon had to stop twice to catch his breath, weak from blood loss. Each time, Arin waited for him, her glowing eyes watching him with intense focus. When they finally reached the evacuation pod and sealed themselves inside, Ji-hoon collapsed into a seat. The pod launched automatically, carrying them away from the dying station. Through the viewport, Ji-hoon watched Perihelion Station tear itself apart in a series of explosions. Hundreds of people had been on that station. He hoped most of them had escaped. Arin sat across from him, silent. Her hands were clasped in her lap, and she kept staring at them as if they belonged to someone else. Finally she spoke. No one has ever given their blood for a Veldari before, she said quietly. Especially not a human for someone like me. Ji-hoon leaned his head back against the seat, exhausted. Well, now someone has. This will change everything, Arin whispered. Ji-hoon closed his eyes. He did not understand what she meant. He had just wanted to save a life. How could that change anything? He would soon learn exactly how wrong he was. 3 days after the station disaster, Ji-hoon sat in a small medical room aboard a human transport ship. The doctors had checked him thoroughly and declared him healthy despite the blood loss. They gave him supplements and told him to rest. They also told him he was lucky to be alive. Ji-hoon did not feel lucky. He felt confused and worried. The Veldari authorities had separated him from Lady Arin immediately after rescue. They had asked him hundreds of questions about what happened on the station, then told him to wait. So he waited, staring at the white walls of the medical room and wondering what would happen next. The door opened. A human officer entered, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Ji-hoon, you have been summoned. Summoned where? To the Veldari flagship Celestial Dominion, the officer said. They are sending a shuttle for you. It will arrive in 1 hour. Ji-hoon stood up. Why do they want to see me? The officer shook his head. They did not say. But when the Veldari imperial family summons you, you do not ask questions. You just go? The shuttle ride to the massive Veldari warship felt like traveling into a different world. The Celestial Dominion was enormous, 10 times larger than any human vessel. Its hull gleamed like polished silver, and its design was elegant in a way that human ships could never match. Ji-hoon felt very small as the shuttle docked inside one of its many bays. Veldari guards escorted him through corridors that seemed more like art galleries than spaceship hallways. Everything was decorated with intricate patterns that hurt his eyes if he looked at them too long. The other Veldari he passed stared at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. He was clearly not welcome here. They brought him to a large chamber filled with serious-looking Veldari wearing elaborate robes. At the center stood Lady Arin. She looked completely different from the dying woman he had rescued. Her skin glowed with health, and she stood straighter and taller than before. Her eyes found his immediately, and something flashed across her face. Relief, maybe, or recognition. An elderly Veldari male stepped forward. His robes marked him as someone important. Human Ji-hoon, I am Lord Kellen, head of the Imperial Science Council. We have many questions for you. I will answer what I can, Ji-hoon said carefully. Tell us everything that happened on the station, Lord Kellen demanded. Every detail of your interaction with Lady Arin. Ji-hoon recounted the story. The explosion, finding Arin trapped, the decision to give his blood. As he spoke, the Veldari in the room whispered to each other. Some looked shocked. Others looked angry. None looked happy. When he finished, Lord Kellen turned to Arin. Show him. Arin stepped into the center of the room. A Veldari servant brought forward a heavy metal cube, the kind used for strength testing. Normally, it required 2 strong Veldari males to lift it. Arin picked it up with one hand as if it weighed nothing. The whispers in the room grew louder. Before the transfusion, Lady Arin could barely lift half this weight, Lord Kellen said. Now she is stronger than any Veldari we have tested. She no longer requires the mineral supplements our species needs to survive. Her immune system has become so efficient that diseases which would kill any of us cannot even infect her. Ji-hoon stared at Arin. The blood did that? Your blood did that, Lord Kellen corrected coldly. Human blood contains proteins and cellular structures we have never seen before. When integrated with Veldari biology, the results are extraordinary. Lady Arin is no longer purely Veldari. She has become something else, something more. The way he said more sounded like an accusation. Another Veldari spoke up, a female with angry eyes. This is contamination. The purity of the imperial bloodline has been compromised. I was dying, Arin said sharply. Ji-hoon saved my life. Would you prefer I had died purely Veldari? Some would say yes, the female replied. The room erupted into argument. Ji-hoon stood quietly, trying to understand what was happening. He had thought saving Arin would earn gratitude. Instead, he seemed to have caused some kind of political crisis. Lord Kellen raised his hand for silence. The fact remains that this human possesses something valuable, something that could change our entire species. We must study him thoroughly. Study me? Ji-hoon asked nervously. Blood samples, tissue samples, full genetic mapping, Lord Kellen said. We need to understand what makes human biology so compatible with ours. This could be the key to solving many of our species' genetic weaknesses. Ji-hoon did not like how that sounded. What if I refuse? You cannot refuse, Lord Kellen said simply. You are on a Veldari vessel in Veldari space. You have no rights here. He has the right of the person who saved my life, Arin interrupted. She moved to stand beside Ji-hoon. By ancient law, that grants him protection under my house. Lord Kellen frowned. That law has not been invoked in centuries. Then it is past time we remembered it, Arin said firmly. The political maneuvering was clearly above Ji-hoon's head. He watched as Arin and Lord Kellen stared at each other. Finally, the old Veldari looked away. Very well, Lord Kellen said. But there will be consequences, Lady Arin. News of this is already spreading. The Purity League is demanding answers. Several noble houses are questioning your fitness to inherit the throne. Your father, the Emperor, is deeply concerned. Let them question, Arin said. I am stronger now than any of them. That should matter in a society that values strength. Later, Arin brought Ji-hoon to a private room. It was smaller than the grand chambers, but still more luxurious than anywhere Ji-hoon had ever been. She dismissed her guards and stood by the window, looking out at the stars. Thank you, she said quietly, for speaking the truth. Some advised me to lie about what happened, to say you forced the transfusion or that it was an accident. Why would I force you? Ji-hoon asked, confused. To make yourself valuable? To gain leverage over the imperial family. Arin turned to face him. That is what they think humans would do. They do not understand that you helped me simply because it was right. Ji-hoon sat down, suddenly exhausted. What happens now? Now you are in danger, Arin said bluntly. The Purity League will try to kill you. They see you as a symbol of contamination. Corporate interests will try to kidnap you for study. Rival houses will try to use you against me. You cannot go back to your normal life. Because I saved you, Jihun said bitterly. Yes, Arin looked genuinely sorry. I am trying to arrange protection for you. But there is something else you should know. The scientists found something when they studied my blood. What? The changes are not only in me, Arin said carefully. Your body is also changing? Slowly but measurably. Your cells are processing nutrients more efficiently. Your healing is faster. It is as if your body remembers the connection we shared. Jihun looked at his hands. They looked normal to him. What does that mean? I do not know, Arin admitted. No one knows. This has never happened before. We are in uncharted territory. A chime sounded. Arin's expression darkened as she read a message on her communicator. My father has summoned me to the homeworld. He wants to see me in person. And he wants me to bring you to the Veldari homeworld? Jihun asked. Why? To determine if you are a threat or an opportunity, Arin said. The Imperial Court is the most dangerous place in the galaxy. If we go there, we might not survive. And if we refuse? Then they will come for us anyway, Arin said. At least if we go willingly, we might have some control over what happens. Jihun thought about his mother on Earth. He should message her. Tell her he loved her. But what would he say? That he saved an alien princess and now political forces beyond his understanding wanted him dead or studied like a laboratory animal? When do we leave? He asked. Arin smiled sadly. Tomorrow. I'm sorry, Jihun. I never wanted this for you. I know, Jihun said. But we do not always get what we want. He looked out the window at the endless stars and wondered if he would ever see Earth again. The Veldari homeworld was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Jihun watched through the ship's viewport as they descended toward a planet that seemed to glow with its own light. Crystal spires reached toward the sky, and vast cities sprawled across continents. This was the heart of an empire that ruled over hundreds of worlds. Jihun felt very small and very alone. The Imperial Palace was even more impressive than the planet itself. They walked through halls made of materials Jihun could not name, past guards who watched him like he was a dangerous animal. Arin walked beside him, her head held high, but Jihun could sense her tension. She was afraid too, though she hid it well. The Emperor sat on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal. He was tall even for a Veldari, and his eyes held the weight of centuries. He studied Jihun for a long moment before speaking. So this is the human who changed my daughter, Emperor Devron said. His voice was deep and cold. You do not look like much. I am just a maintenance engineer, Your Majesty, Jihun replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Just a maintenance engineer who possesses something my entire science division wants to understand, the Emperor said. Tell me, human, did you know what your blood would do to my daughter? No, Your Majesty. I only knew she would die without help. The Emperor leaned forward. And you helped her anyway. Why? Jihun thought carefully about his answer. Because it was the right thing to do. Several Veldari in the court laughed at this. The Emperor did not laugh. He simply studied Jihun with those ancient eyes. Right, wrong, such simple concepts. Tell me, was it right to potentially compromise the genetic purity of the imperial bloodline? I did not think about bloodlines, Jihun said. I thought about saving a life. Spoken like a true human, said a voice from the side. A Veldari male stepped forward, wearing robes that marked him as high nobility. Simple, emotional, unable to see the larger consequences of your actions. This is Lord Kevran, my brother, the Emperor said. He has concerns about this situation. Lord Kevran smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. My niece has been altered by foreign biology. She is no longer suitable to inherit the throne. The law is clear on this matter. Arin stiffened. The law says nothing about medical intervention to save a life. The law says the heir must be of pure imperial blood, Kevran countered. Are you still pure, niece? Or has this human's DNA mixed with yours permanently? The court erupted into whispers. Jihoon realized this was not just about him or Oren, this was about power. Kevin wanted the throne, and Oren's transformation gave him the excuse to challenge her right to inherit. The emperor raised his hand for silence. These matters will be investigated thoroughly. Until then, the human will remain as our guest. He will be given quarters in the palace under guard. For his protection, of course. Jihoon understood. He was a prisoner. The quarters they gave him were luxurious but isolated. Guards stood outside his door at all times. He was not allowed to leave or communicate with anyone outside the palace. For 3 days, he saw no one except servants who brought him food and would not speak to him. On the 4th night, someone tried to kill him. Jihoon woke to the sound of his door opening. He sat up just as a dark figure rushed into the room. The attacker moved fast, too fast for Jihoon to react. A blade flashed in the darkness. Jihoon rolled off the bed just as the knife struck where his chest had been. He scrambled backward, shouting for the guards. The attacker came at him again, silent and deadly. Then the door burst open and Oren rushed in, moving with impossible speed. She grabbed the attacker and threw him across the room with strength that should have been impossible. The assassin hit the wall hard and did not get up. Guards flooded into the room. Oren stood over Jihoon, breathing hard. "Are you hurt?" "No," Jihoon managed. "You saved me." "Someone in this palace wants you dead," Oren said grimly. She looked at the guards. "Find out who sent this assassin." But the investigation found nothing. The attacker was a hired killer with no connections to anyone in the court. Or so they claimed. Jihoon knew the truth. Someone powerful wanted him eliminated, and they had enough influence to cover their tracks. Oren came to his quarters the next day. She dismissed the guards and locked the door behind her. This was not the only attempt. 3 separate factions have tried to either kidnap or kill you. My father's protection is not enough. What do we do? Jihoon asked. We find allies, Oren said. There is someone I want you to meet. She led him through secret passages in the palace to a hidden laboratory. A human woman looked up from her work as they entered. She was young, perhaps in her 30s, with tired eyes and nervous hands. This is Dr. Soman, Oren said. She is a xenobiologist who has been studying the transfusion in secret. Soman stood and bowed slightly to Jihoon. I have wanted to meet you. Your blood is extraordinary. So everyone keeps telling me? Jihoon said. Soman pulled up data on a holographic display. The proteins in human blood have a unique adaptive quality. When they interact with Veldari cells, they do not replace them. They enhance them. It is like your biology teaches the Veldari cells how to be better at what they already do. Is that why Oren is stronger? Jihoon asked. Yes, but there is more. Soman highlighted another section of data. The transfusion created a genetic marker in both of you. You are permanently changed, linked at a cellular level. Your bodies recognize each other as connected. Oren stared at the data. What does that mean? I found records in the old archives, Soman said carefully. Ancient Veldari law recognized such biological bonds as sacred. When two beings share life force in this way, they become legally equal under old imperial law. If this becomes public knowledge, Jihoon would be considered your equal in status. A human equal to an imperial heir, Oren said slowly. That would cause chaos. It gets worse, Soman said. I found something else in the archives. The Veldari genetic purity doctrine is only 3,000 years old. Before that, your species regularly integrated traits from other species. The modern purity laws were propaganda installed after a civil war. Jihoon felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. The Veldari Empire is built on a lie? The ruling class deleted the historical records to maintain power, Soman confirmed. But some archives survived in forgotten databases. I have been collecting them. The evidence is clear. The Veldari were never genetically pure. They were integrators. They took the best traits from every species they met. Oren sank into a chair. If this is true, everything my family claims is false. Our right to rule is based on purity that never existed. Which is why people will kill to keep this secret, Soman said. I have already been threatened. My lab was raided last week, but I backed up the data. Now, we need to decide what to do with this information. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the palace. Soman's face went pale. They found us. Armed soldiers burst into the lab. But these were not palace guards. They wore unmarked armor and moved with military precision. The leader pointed a weapon at Soman. You are under arrest for treason, on whose authority? Aaron demanded, stepping forward. Lord Kevrin, acting on behalf of the Imperial Security Council, the soldier replied. Step aside, Lady Aaron. This does not concern you. Everything that happens to my people concerns me, Aaron said coldly. The soldier made the mistake of trying to push past her. Aaron moved with speed that shocked even Ji-hoon. She disarmed the soldier and used him as a shield against the others. We are leaving. Try to stop us and your commander dies. They backed toward a service exit. Soman grabbed a data storage device and ran with them. More soldiers appeared, but Arin fought through them with terrifying efficiency. Ji-hoon had never seen anyone move like she did. The transfusion had made her into something beyond normal. Veldari. They escaped the palace through maintenance tunnels that Soman knew about from her research. A ship was waiting, piloted by a scarred Veldari warrior named Myra, who owed Oren a debt. They launched before palace security could lock down the landing platform's dot as they fled into space. Ji-hoon looked back at the glowing planet. We just became fugitives. We became the most wanted people in the Empire, Oren corrected. Kevrin will say I kidnapped you and Soman. He will use this to claim the throne. Then we need to prove the truth, Soman said firmly. The data I have can change everything. But we need more proof. More evidence from the old archives. Where do we find that? Ji-hoon asked that. Myra answered from the pilot's seat. The frontier colonies. There are ruins out there older than the current empire. If answers exist, that is where we will find them. Aaron looked at Ji-hoon. This is not the life you chose. No, Ji-hoon agreed. But it is the life we have now. So let us make it count. The frontier colony of Threshold was a rough place where the Empire's authority barely reached. Ji-hoon, Orin, Somin, and Myra stayed in a cheap hostel that asked no questions. For 2 weeks, they searched local databases and interviewed old colonists who remembered stories about ancient ruins. Finally, an elderly Veldari merchant told them about structures deep in the northern mountains. No one goes there anymore, she said. The old ones say the ruins are cursed, but my grandfather said they were holy places from before the purity laws. They hired a transport and flew into the mountains. The ruins appeared suddenly, massive stone structures covered in symbols that hurt Ji-hoon's eyes to look at directly. Soman scanned them with her equipment and gasped. These symbols are genetic sequences, she said. The entire structure is a database written in stone. They spent days exploring the ruins. The deeper they went, the more incredible the discoveries became. Soman's equipment decoded the symbols, revealing records of genetic experiments, integration protocols, and histories of species whose names Ji-hoon had never heard. On the 5th day, they found the central archive. It was a massive chamber filled with crystalline structures that still held data after thousands of years. Soman connected her equipment and downloaded everything she could. Hours passed as the data transferred. Ji-hoon watched Aaron pace the chamber, her expression troubled. What is wrong? He asked. This place, Aaron said quietly. It proves everything I was taught was a lie. My ancestors were not pure. They were experimenters who took genetic material from dozens of species. The modern Veldari are the result of countless integrations. Does that make you less? Ji-hoon asked. Aaron turned to look at him. I do not know what it makes me. My entire identity was built on the idea that Veldari genetics were superior because they were pure. Now I learn that our strength comes from being impure. Soman called out to them. You need to see this. She displayed a genetic comparison on her holographic screen. On one side was modern human DNA, on the other was the genetic code of an extinct species called the Kiran. The The similarities were striking. Humans and Karen share over 70% genetic compatibility. Soman explained. The Kirin were one of the species the ancient Veldari integrated with regularly. According to these records, they were known for their adaptability and immune system strength. What happened to them? Ji-hoon asked. Soman's expression darkened. They were systematically eliminated 3,000 years ago, during the civil war that established the purity doctrine. The winning faction decided that species like the Karen were too different, too dangerous to the concept of Veldari supremacy. So they destroyed them. Ji-hoon felt sick. They committed genocide. Multiple genocides, Soman corrected. The records list 17 species that were eliminated or driven away. The Kirin were just the largest population. If humans are genetic descendants of the Kiran, that explains why your blood was compatible with Orin's. You are not foreign to Veldari biology. You are a relative they tried to erase from history. A sound echoed through the ruins. Myra appeared at the chamber entrance, her weapon drawn. We have company. Multiple ships approaching. They grabbed what data they could and ran for their transport. But they were too late. Imperial warships descended from the sky, surrounding the ruins. Soldiers poured out, led by Lord Kevern himself. Kevern smiled when he saw Arin. My dear niece, did you really think you could hide in these forgotten places forever? How did you find us? Arin demanded. I have been tracking Dr. Summon's research for months, Kevern said. I knew she would lead me to these ruins eventually. And I knew you would come with her. He gestured to his soldiers. Seize them! Myra fired at the advancing soldiers, but there were too many. Ji-hoon grabbed a piece of fallen metal and swung it at a soldier who got too close. He connected with the soldier's helmet, and the soldier fell. Ji-hoon stared at his hands in shock. He should not have been strong enough to do that. The changes are accelerating, Soman shouted over the sound of weapons fire. Your body is adapting faster now. Arin fought like a force of nature, throwing soldiers aside with incredible strength. But even she could not fight them all. They were being pushed back toward the central archive chamber. Surrounded on all sides, Kevern walked forward calmly, confident in his victory. You have lost, Arin. Even if you fight your way out of here, where will you go? I control the Imperial fleet. I have convinced the Council that you have been compromised by human contamination. Your father has been declared unfit to rule due to age and poor judgment. I'm now Regent Emperor, based on lies, Arin said. Based on what people choose to believe, Kevern corrected. And they will believe that the purity of our species must be protected. The humans must be kept separate, controlled, used for their valuable genetics but never allowed to threaten Veldari supremacy. Ji-hoon felt anger rising in him. You want to harvest humans. Turn us into genetic resources. Better than extinction, Kevern said with a shrug. You should be grateful. Your species will serve a higher purpose. Soman looked at her equipment, then at the crystalline structures around them. These archives are still connected to the old Imperial network. If I can boost the signal, I can broadcast the data we found to every device in the Empire. Do it, Arin said immediately. No, Kevern shouted. He raised his weapon toward Soman, but Ji-hoon threw himself in front of her. The energy blast hit him in the chest, and he fell. The pain was incredible. Ji-hoon felt like his entire body was on fire. He heard Arin scream his name. Then something strange happened. The pain began to fade, replaced by a sensation he could not describe. It was as if every cell in his body was waking up, connecting, becoming more than they had been. He stood up. The wound in his chest was healing faster than should have been possible. Kevern stared at him in shock. Impossible, Kevern whispered. Nothing is impossible, Ji-hoon said. His voice sounded different to his own ears, stronger. You are afraid of change. That is why you cling to purity. But life is change. Evolution is change. And you cannot stop it. Soman activated the broadcast. The crystalline structures lit up, pulsing with energy. Data poured out of the ruins, transmitted through ancient networks that still functioned after millennia. The genetic records, the historical truth, the evidence of genocide and lies, all of it spread across the empire in seconds. Kevrin tried to shut it down, but it was too late. Billions of Veldari were seeing the truth at the same moment. Their entire history, their entire identity, revealed as a carefully constructed lie. Myra received a message on her communicator. Ships are breaking formation. Some of Kevrin's fleet is refusing orders. They are confused by the broadcast. Kevrin's confident expression cracked. He looked around at his soldiers, many of whom were checking their own devices and reading the broadcast data. Their loyalty was wavering. "This changes nothing," Kevrin insisted. "Even if the old ways were different, we must maintain order now. Purity is the foundation of our society." "No," said a voice from the entrance. Emperor Davrin walked into the chamber, flanked by loyal guards. He looked old and tired, but his eyes were clear. "Lies are the foundation you built, brother, and I will not let you rule through deception." Kevrin's soldiers lowered their weapons. The emperor still commanded loyalty, even if he had been declared unfit. The balance of power shifted in an instant. Davrin approached Jihun and studied him carefully. "You healed from an energy weapon. That should have killed any human." "I am changing," Jihun admitted. "The transfusion with Aran is affecting me more every day." "Then you are proof that integration is possible," Davrin said. "Perhaps even beneficial." He turned to address everyone in the chamber. "I was wrong to let fear guide our policy. The evidence is clear. Our ancestors thrived through integration. We grew weak through isolation and false purity." "You are a fool," Kevrin spat. "Opening our genetics to humans will destroy everything we built." "What we built was built on genocide and lies," Davrin replied. "That is not worth preserving." He gestured to his guards. "Arrest Lord Kevrin. He will stand trial for attempting to overthrow the legitimate government." As Kevrin was led away, Davrin looked at Aran. "My daughter, what you have become frightens many of our people. But perhaps that is what we need. Someone who bridges the old and new. Will you still accept the throne when I step down?" Aran glanced at Jihun, then nodded. "I will, but not as the Empire exists now. We need to change. We need to become what we once were, integrators, learners, partners with other species, not masters over them." "That will cause a civil war," Davrin warned. "Then let it come," Aran said firmly. "Some things are worth fighting for." The civil war everyone predicted did not come immediately. Instead, something more complicated happened. The Empire fractured into dozens of factions, each with different ideas about what the broadcast revelations meant for their future. Some worlds declared independence, tired of imperial control. Others rallied to Aran's message of integration and change. Still others supported traditionalist governors, who insisted the old ways should be preserved despite the lies they were built on. And some planets simply waited to see which side would win before choosing. Jihun found himself at the center of it all. Whether he wanted to be or not, Aran established a new capital on a neutral station called Unity Point, halfway between Veldari and human space. It was a symbolic choice. She was building something new, not trying to hold on to the old empire. Thousands of Veldari came to join her. Along with humans eager to be part of this historical moment, Soman set up a medical research facility where willing volunteers could participate in controlled integration studies. The early results were fascinating and sometimes frightening. Not every human was compatible with Veldari biology, and not every Veldari could safely integrate human traits. But when it worked, the results were remarkable. Jihun visited the facility often. He was the first successful integration, and Soman needed to monitor his ongoing changes. Each week, he grew a little stronger, healed a little faster, saw a little more clearly. He was becoming something that had never existed before. Not quite human, not quite Veldari, but something between. "Does it scare you?" Soman asked during one examination. "Every day," Jihun admitted. "I look in the mirror and sometimes I do not recognize myself. My mother sent me a message last week. She was crying. She said I looked different on the video call." "You are different," Soman said gently. But you are still you. The changes are physical, but your mind, your personality, those are still Ji-hoon. Are they? Ji-hoon asked. Sometimes I feel things I never felt before. Stronger emotions. Clearer thoughts. Is that me, or is that the Veldari genetics changing how my brain works? Soman had no answer to that. The real test came when Arin proposed a public demonstration. She wanted to show the entire galaxy what integration could achieve. Ji-hoon would volunteer for a live broadcast, where he would undergo a controlled enhancement procedure while millions watched. It is too dangerous, Myra argued during the planning meeting. If something goes wrong, you die on camera. That will destroy everything we have built. And if it works, it will prove that integration is not just possible but beneficial, Arin countered. People need to see hope, not just theory. Ji-hoon made the decision himself. I will do it. You do not have to, Arin said quietly when they were alone. I will not force you to be a symbol. I became a symbol the moment I saved your life, Ji-hoon replied. At least now I can choose what I symbolize. The broadcast reached an estimated 1 trillion viewers across hundreds of worlds. Ji-hoon lay on a medical table in the center of a transparent operating theater. Cameras captured every angle. Soman and her team surrounded him. Preparing the equipment, the procedure involved introducing carefully modified Veldari cellular material into Ji-hoon's bloodstream while monitoring his body's response. If successful, it would enhance his already improving abilities. If it failed, his immune system might reject the material and kill him in minutes. Soman looked down at him. Last chance to back out? Start the procedure, Ji-hoon said. The injection felt cold spreading through his veins. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pain started. It was worse than being shot, worse than anything Ji-hoon had ever experienced. His body fought against the foreign material, every cell screaming in rejection. He heard alarms. Soman shouting orders. Arin's voice calling his name. But the pain was too much. He felt himself slipping away, then suddenly something clicked. It was as if his body remembered what to do. The Veldari cellular material stopped being foreign and started being part of him. The pain transformed into a rush of energy so intense he thought he might explode. Ji-hoon opened his eyes. The world looked different. Colors were brighter. He could hear conversations from across the facility. He could smell the chemical composition of the air around him. And he felt strong, stronger than he had ever imagined possible. He sat up slowly. Every camera in the room focused on him. He looked at his hands and saw them glowing faintly with the same inner light that Veldari possessed. It worked, Soman whispered in amazement. Ji-hoon stood. He felt like he could run forever, lift anything, survive anything. But more than that, he felt connected. To Arin, to the Veldari volunteers in the facility, even to the humans watching from Earth. It was as if barriers he had never known existed had suddenly dissolved. How do you feel? Arin asked. Ji-hoon smiled. I feel like I can see tomorrow. The broadcast ended, but its effects rippled across the galaxy. Applications to Unity Point tripled overnight. Human governments, initially suspicious of integration, began serious discussions about cooperation. Even traditionalist Veldari factions found their support weakening as people saw what was possible. Not everyone was convinced. A coalition of conservative worlds formed under a Veldari admiral named Torin. He declared that Arin's integration project was a threat to both species and vowed to preserve natural boundaries between them. Let him try, Arin said when she received news of the opposition fleet. We will not fire the first shot, but we will defend what we have built. The confrontation came at the edge of Unity Point's system. Admiral Torin's fleet outnumbered Arin's forces 3-1. He opened a communication channel, his image appearing on Unity Point's main screen. Lady Arin, you have led our people astray with false promises and genetic manipulation, Torin said formally. Surrender now, and I will be merciful. Admiral Torin, you represent fear of change, Arin replied. I will not surrender the future to your past. Then you leave me no choice. The opposing fleet prepared to attack. But before they could fire, something unexpected happened. A massive human fleet emerged from hyperspace, positioning themselves between the two forces. The fleet commander was a stern woman named Admiral Park. "This is Admiral Park of the Human Defense Fleet," she announced on an open channel. "Unity Point is under our protection. Any attack on this station will be considered an act of war against humanity." "This is an internal Veldari matter," Torin protested. "Not anymore," Admiral Park said. "There are 10,000 human citizens on that station, including my nephew. You will not harm them." More ships arrived. Independent colonies, merchant fleets, even some Veldari vessels from worlds that supported integration. They formed a protective ring around Unity Point, Torin's numerical advantage. Disappeared. Ji-hun watched from Unity Point's command center as the standoff continued. Arin stood beside him, her hand finding his. Through their bond, he could feel her determination and her fear. "Will he attack?" Ji-hun asked. "I do not know," Arin admitted. Torin's face appeared on screen again. He looked older somehow, defeated. "You have won this day, Arin, but this is not over. There will always be those who resist this change." "I know," Arin said. "Change is never easy. But it is necessary." Torin's fleet withdrew. The crisis was over, for now. In the days that followed, Arin officially claimed the throne. Not as Empress of the Veldari Empire, but as first sovereign of the Concordat, a new government based on voluntary integration and mutual advancement between species. Dozens of worlds joined immediately. More would follow. Ji-hun did not accept any titles or political positions. Instead, he became the first director of the Interspecies Medical Exchange, working with Somin to carefully expand integration research to other species. It was slow, careful work. Each species was different. Each integration had to be studied thoroughly, but it was worth it. 1 year after the transfusion that changed everything, Ji-hun stood on a balcony overlooking Unity Point's main plaza. Below, humans and Veldari walked together, talking, laughing, living side by side. It was not perfect. There were still problems, still prejudices to overcome. But it was progress. Arin joined him at the balcony. She had changed too over the past year. Her leadership had hardened her, but her compassion remained. She looked at the plaza below and smiled. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not given me your blood that day?" she asked. "Every time I look at this," Ji-hun replied, gesturing to the plaza, "I would probably still be fixing pipes on some station. You would be dead. None of this would exist." "One moment changed everything," Arin said. "No," Ji-hun corrected gently. "One choice changed everything. I chose to help. You chose to fight for integration. Somin chose to seek the truth. Every person down there chose to be part of something new. It was not one moment. It was 1,000 choices." Arin's hand found his again. The bond between them hummed with life and energy. "What do you think happens next?" Ji-hun looked up at the stars. He thought about the reports coming in from exploration teams. There were so many species in the galaxy, thousands of civilizations with their own genetics, their own potential. What could they all become if they worked together? "I think we are just getting started," he said. "There are 10,000 species out there. Imagine what we could learn from them. What they could learn from us." "It will take generations," Arin said. "Good," Ji-hun replied. "It means we will never run out of future to